Okay guys, how's it going? Still on lockdown here, so I'm just going to tell you a story. In the old head here, there's massive amounts of memory storage, and I'm going through a few of the files, and I'm going to come out with some stuff for you. I'm going to tell you a story in a little while. First, mobile phone, audio book. That's what I'm listening to. I'm listening to Jocko Willink. Interesting guy. He is an ex-SEAL. Ex-Navy SEAL, American, and basically he's talking about leadership. Personally, I'm not very interested in leadership position. However, I have spent a lot of time having experiences and watching how things develop. Yeah. Now, from the point of view of you being in a position, maybe you want to work up the ladder, you know, take the steps up there, you're fitter, then you become a supervisor, and then maybe eventually workshop controller. Did I say controller? Workshop controller. Maybe service manager, I don't know. As you get older, you tend to prioritise different things as you learn more about what's going on in your work environment. It's progression. Okay, so the law of thermodynamics, this is quite a good one because it relates to life. Okay, if you have a closed system in thermodynamics, you have energy in there, and what happens is something called entropy. Entropy is where things start to degrade. Yeah, they start to fall to bits. Yeah. However, if you have an open system, what happens is energy comes in, so it's always being refreshed and renewed. Okay, the thing is, when you're stuck in a workshop and you're so used to the way things run, you also look at the personalities who are in charge, and you tend to see the way they operate. Even if you don't agree with them, they operate in a certain way you think's acceptable. Well, I mean, I've seen this where the service manager has tried to humiliate the guys, or one particular guy, in front of everybody else, and all that's done is just create resentment and a little bit of fear. Yeah, okay, maybe that's a Machiavellian way of doing it, you know, sort of rule with an iron fist. Yeah, but things have changed. People don't fucking want that anymore, do they? We want to gain respect of people, we want a good reputation, and we want to get our productivity as good as we can. And listening to a guy like the law of thermodynamics, of stuff that's coming in from the outside, you can pick and choose what seems to work better, or try them out. Yeah, so this the book on here, it's an audio book, but he also does a couple of other manuals as well. It's actually really interesting. So I've been going through my head, sorting things out and recalling certain things that guys have done in supervisory positions, and I could tell you a hell of a lot. Yeah, I'm not going to. I'm going to tell you a story in a little while. And people in managerial positions, how they actually deal with people, and how they get the best out of people, because quite often they're not doing it, and it's not their fault. It is not their fault. They are chucked into a position which they got to thrash about and try and work out the best way of doing things, and if they get results from something, they will continue to do it, even though it might not even work for them fully. Yeah, they still do it. Yeah, I'm not criticizing anybody here. I'm not criticizing anybody here, because they're in a closed loop situation. They're only learning from what they've been subject to. Okay, and sometimes that just falls to fucking bits. People hate them. They see the bad points about it, and the stuff they do doesn't work, whereas other things do work. Okay, I personally respect guys that say, you know, the boss that comes onto the workshop floor and he's doing bits and pieces. I've seen this before. It's a classic one. Glenn Moulding, if anybody knows him from Murphy's days, he used to come on the workshop floor every now and then and act like a fucking cock. Yeah, and he could actually prove what he said he was going to do. Instead of living off the old memories of how things used to be, he'd come down and say, oh, well, I'll do this fucker, and I'll tap this and blah blah blah. But he was showing some balls, which to me actually, he gained a lot of respect from me. Even though he ripped me off on my overtime for about 5 years, I didn't notice, but hey, never mind, it's all gone now. Yeah. So anyway, it's just a thought, because when you're in a position to move up a little bit, you want to make sure you've got it right, don't you? Because I've seen guys fail badly when they've been put into something and they just make a fucking hash of it, they get hated by everybody, and they end up packing their toolbox off and fucking off with anger, yeah, because what they'll do is they'll go and slag everybody off how crap the workplace is when it isn't. It's just their anger, their inability to be able to do something, yeah. We all fail, and it doesn't really matter, because failures you can always gain later on by learning by them, yeah, and you can learn by other people's failures, and even if they're teaching you something bad, yeah, if you don't recognize it, you can just follow on with those habits, and it becomes normal, and it might not be the most productive way of doing things. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say. I'm not in a position to be a leader as such, even though I am in my own family situation. That's where it's important for me. Yeah, not bothered about work at all. That's just a means to an end. But some of you guys are very ambitious, and I don't blame you. It's a fucking greasy pole in the haulage trade to get anywhere, yeah. But it is if you do it right. So I'm saying, have a look at the manual. He's not paying me to tell you this. It's just I've spent like 10 hours listening to this stuff. Interesting, yeah. So anyway, now it comes on to the tea break story time, doesn't it? Yeah. I'm going to change some of the names in this because it's important not to get fucked over by them, because you know how it is. They can complain and try and screw me over, yeah. But I will say this: reputation precedes a man, yeah. Now, we think both in long term and short term, yeah. Short term is where you react to a situation, you throw your spanners about, beat your chest, and you may even get to a point where you lock up your toolbox, wheel it out the fucking door and go, yeah. That is the chimpanzee mentality, okay. That is the instant survival mechanism that all of us have. All of us have it. I do it sometimes. Recently I have thrown my dummy out of the pram because my survival has been compromised, yeah, and not good in the long term, because it obviously shows that I'm very impulsive, yeah. However, there is a long term thinking where you have certain things that you want to do and achieve in your life, okay. That will affect your short-term thinking, because sometimes you won't react because you know that you need to get somewhere and you have to keep your mouth shut, yeah, which is reasonable. But this story here is looking at something over a long-term period, okay. This is over a few years where I've seen a situation change, yeah. It turned ass about face, yeah. So what we have is two supervisors in a fleet workshop. Okay, so there's two shifts, earlys and lates, which is normal for our trade, isn't it? And we have one guy who's, I'll call him Peter, yeah, that's not his real name. And then we have another guy called Paul, yeah, Peter and Paul. Now, Peter is a lazy fuck. He likes to spend most of his time drinking tea, slagging off the overall workshop manager, yes, and he used to do that quite a lot, every single day, yeah. But he also used to slag off the other shift supervisor, Paul, yeah. So Peter didn't like Paul. The only reason Peter didn't like Paul is because he wanted to be Oberkommandant, yeah, and he got to that point where he rallied everybody about, after putting loads of false stories about, slagging him off all the time, to get everybody to get Paul out of the way so he'd be demoted, yeah. It's a really bitchy, underhanded way of doing things, but this is what he did. So he got everybody around. He asked me if I would side with him, and I said, actually no. No, I actually I like this guy, but at the same time I was sitting on the fence because I didn't want to get involved in his fucking Julius Caesar power trip, yeah. However, I was ostracised for this. I was shunned, yeah, I was shunned, and I was would I say I was forced to do more work? No, but I went back into myself and didn't go on the extended tea breaks. I used to finish off my jobs, and I'd have to finish off Peter's fucking services because he'd be too busy wandering around trying to look down the top of the secretary, yeah, too busy blagging on about how fucking good he was, yeah. And I'd even answer the phone for the twat times. I'd run in the office, yeah, okay, deal with it, whatever, blah blah blah. So I got efficient at what I was doing in that place, simply because I was near enough on my own, yeah. And this was a lesson I had to learn. I got angry, kept it all in though, and expressed it in other ways with a hammer on the fucking wheels and stuff like that, yeah. And it was just something I lived with, but I knew this was going to change over a period of time. So Paul got deposed, Peter got Uber commandant position where he was in control of everything. Why, I don't know. And then things changed. We got made redundant, the contract came to an end, the company took the fleet on, and everybody was dispersed. Well, I ended up with Peter in a different workshop, but this time he wasn't a supervisor, yeah, he was just a communal garden fitter. Yeah, and this is where things changed very considerably. From my perspective, I was just being productive, just knocking things out. Okay, so we are in a position where we're doing MOT preps on trailers, which involved hub services. So you know this, don't you? That's 6 off, re-grease, yeah, clean re-grease, new hub seals in, 6 back on again, brakes adjusted up and brake tested and all that sort of thing, yeah. Well, he was fucking useless, to be honest with you, because he hadn't paid attention at all to the job. He hadn't been on the workshop floor hardly in the time that I was working with him in fleet. So Peter was well behind, and this is on trailers, for fuck's sake, yeah. This is on trailers, not units but trailers, yeah. They're simple as fuck. But what I had done in myself, okay, is I'd learned persistence, be able to get on with the job, complete the job, however fucking boring it is doing hub seals. And this is, you know, you're doing it like 2 years worth of MOTs constantly, yeah. This, you get beyond it, yeah. Whereas this guy couldn't do it, he hated it, he didn't want to do it, but he didn't really know how to do it. So he's now coming to me asking me how to do stuff, how he can get more efficient. Well, well, that's just it. So he had to watch what I was doing. Problem that came about for him, this is Peter, we have a reputation that's come over with him of him being a coup d'etat type of man, somebody who would be willing to set up a situation to get power, yeah. So the supervisor we're working under, I can't, damn, Chimp Man, we'll call him Chimp Man, yeah. He was concerned about this, and he actually expressed it. He said, I know what this cunt's like, I know what this Peter's like, do you think he's going to try and take my job? And I'm looking at this is an opportunity to put a bit of worry in this guy, and I'm like, don't know, mate, yeah, probably, yeah. So he's got his eye on him, so Peter's being watched by this supervisor, yeah, ape-man supervisor's watching him to see what he's doing. And it unfolded that how fucking useless he was. He was not productive at all, yeah, and he wasn't liked, and he was watched, okay. So tables had turned completely. He felt uncomfortable in that position. Peter felt uncomfortable in that position. He couldn't do what he used to do. He was used to this comfortable lifestyle, and he couldn't do it because he actually had to work. Whereas myself, I'm not blowing my trumpet here, yeah, but I'd already got in such a routine of just doing it without slacking, yeah, that it was natural to me, yeah. So I was getting ahead of him, and this is the way it worked, yeah. So eventually the guy got sacked. Actually, he got sacked, he got fucked off, and he was very, very bitter about it. He still is bitter about it. He's in a position now, he's got himself into where he's not doing too much work, he's happy, yeah. So happy all the way around. I don't have to see that cunt anymore, yeah. And the other people who didn't like him don't have to see him as well. He's fucking miles away. He has to travel like 50 miles to work and 50 miles back every day, instead of the 7 miles to work and back that he was doing. So more fool him. I personally respect, and I know you do too, is the man who's in authority, who's willing to come down to your level, understand what you're doing, ask you questions about the job that you're doing, and maybe even pitch in sometimes, yeah, you know, throw the overalls, dive in there and get on with it. I do personally challenge people who ask me to do more overtime, yeah. Are they going to get their overalls and come down onto the workshop floor and help out as well if it's required? Yeah, this is a test, and I love doing this as a test to see what sort of person they are, because if they're going to say no, I ain't got time to do that, well, I haven't got time to do that either, yeah. See how it can go, yeah. But the thing is, at the end of the day, and this is what I'm trying to say to you, is that long-term solutions are as just waiting and seeing what happens. There's this concept of karma, where people get their comeuppance, and they certainly do. Yeah, if they let it go slack for too long and they can't pick up the line and bring the line taut again, they will fall down quite badly. I've seen it more than once, just to put it this way. So you have guys who think they're fucking clever, they think they want the authority and everything else, and they can sit back on it. It all snaps back on them pretty badly at the end of the day. It's just a matter of waiting, doing what you need to do, even if you have to get your head down a bit more and shut the fuck up, yeah, and becoming more efficient and better at what you do. And then just stretching that line out. Wait until circumstances change, because they always do. Life does not stay the same. Life does not stay the same. It turns, and when those circumstances turn, then you see what people are really like. If you've been consistent in what you do, then it is to your credit. That's all I've got to say now. Yeah, this is an old fucking guy. I'm 53 now. I've seen quite a bit. Yeah, there are some cunts about, but there are also some fucking good leaders. Yeah, so if you want to be a good leader, just look outside the box sometimes. It might help you. Yeah, so anyway, it's enough from me. Talked enough now. No, this is a bit of a worrying time, and we're all going to have to pull our socks up in Britain, because the world's changing quite drastically and we've got to be on board with this. Yeah, so anyway, see you later. Peace and love, brothers.